As a person that's worked for the minimum wage almost my entire life, whenever I run into an article like this that really describes how terrible those jobs are and how they're not designed for you to be able to build a life on, it really strikes a chord with me because I've always been told while working those jobs that it was my fault that I wasn't getting ahead, that this job was giving me so many opportunities that I would be able to use in the future in order to build a better life. But that never happened. The minimum wage jobs are often sold as a stepping stone to a better future, but they frequently trap workers in a cycle of poverty. These jobs boast phrases like no experience necessary or entry level, yet demand qualifications and skills that most applicants, especially young or first time workers, don't have. This contradiction creates a catch 22. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to gain experience. For many, this entry point feels more like a dead end, perpetuating economic struggles rather than alleviating them. You walk to any mall near your house or the gas station across the street, any place around you where people are making the minimum wage, and they will tell you that they're not making it. With my Gen Zs over the past few years, as I mentioned yesterday, they come in with all this hope that they're going to get experience and the corporation's going to move them up and that this and that's going to happen. But the reality is that most of the jobs that are available with this evil corp, they're cookie cutter jobs. You come in, you do the mindless repetitive work. At the end of the year, there's no raise, meaning that there's no reason for you to stay because you're not learning to do anything beyond very basic things. You can spend years, or you can spend your whole life like I have, working a minimum wage job and realize, even after working for 20 years, you have no desirable skills, which means that every time you start over at a new job, you're starting at a negative because you have to learn how to do that job. And they may not like that you don't know how to do basic things like becoming a cashier. If you've never been a cashier before, every cashier system is different. Every system at McDonald's, from Walmart to Burger King to Taco Bell, they all have different buttons. None of it functions the exact same way. And that means that whenever you start over at a new fast food restaurant, whether it's Chick-fil-A or Filiberto's, it's going to be a different experience and you have no experience when you start there. Which leads me to my story here. So, in minimum wage nightmares, do you ever feel like you're trapped? Like no matter how hard you try and you escape the grind, welcome to my world. Minimum wage jobs. They promise independence, but all they deliver is exhaustion and just enough to keep you coming back. Today I'm going to share what it's really like working in these jobs, the stuff no one talks about and why they can leave you feeling more broken than you ever thought possible. This is why I pre record a lot of my recordings during the weekend and then just play recordings during the week as new videos because it is very hard for me to come home from Evil Corp with my soul crushed and feeling terrible. It's the mental exhaustion that really gets you because they don't have enough people to do the work. And when the work starts falling behind, they start looking at pointing fingers at other people, and you look at what they're doing. There's problems here, there are problems there. There aren't enough people. The requirements, the productivity that they're expecting is never reached. And the employees are just left thinking to themselves, is today my last day? When you leave an evil corp, that's what you think about every single day. There is no job security. Before I left to go on my staycation this time, I made certain that there wasn't a single thing left in my office. If they called me right now and told me, hey, Millennial Steam, you don't work here anymore, I'm like, great. Just mail me back my custom mouse and we're good. That's it. I don't need anything else. I make it a point to not be one of those people who is delusional about having job security. In fact, the last person that I was talking to, She went out and she bought all of these things for her brand new office. She bought pink letterhead, some pens, some anime decorations for her office. She decorated her office to the max. It wasn't long before she was getting in trouble repeatedly. And it took them less than a year before they realized that this person wasn't going to work out here. This person wasn't willing to sacrifice their comfort, their life, make tough decisions that only benefited the corporation and that definitely didn't offer anything. No incentives to them, no raises, very few opportunities for time off, and there was definitely not going to be any promotions. That's the minimum wage. That's how it traps you. And a lot of people want to believe that it's not real, that I'm the pessimist when it comes to these types of jobs. So you think a minimum wage job is the first step to success, right? Wrong. Let's talk about the qualifications. They say no experience necessary, but the second you show up, it's like you're expected to have a PhD in multitasking and a master's degree in dealing with Karen level complaints. I remember scrolling through job listings thinking, how do I need experience to get experience? It's like trying to play Monopoly, but someone already owns all the properties and won't let you go past go. That's very true. When you get there, and the first thing that happens to you is that they don't want to train you, they don't want to mentor you, and they don't want you staying there for very long. Because as I've said in previous videos, the last thing they want is people to get comfortable in a job. They want you out as soon as possible. 3 to 6 months out. And it's not like um, they're not they're how do I put this? You feel it the second you get off on the job that you're not expected to stay long. There's nothing about the job that's comfortable. It doesn't have benefits. It doesn't have health care. It doesn't have long-term employees. That's the one thing that you note is when you show up to one of these minimum wage jobs, you're watching the people turn over in real time, like I did in the call center. Is that one day Johnny Sixpack is over there in the corner, tomorrow Susie Rottencrotch is gone. You walk over, and I did this at the call center because I saw, a mildly attractive woman show up at a call center, which is very unusual. And so I walked over, she was all smiles, and I asked her, it's like, how did you find this job? And she said, oh, that guy over there, he's part of my church and said that they were looking for people. And I thought, well, I guess if you have no problem with bringing people into these places and knowing full well what this is, then you don't have any dignity, because that was something when you work in a minimum wage job, since they can never find anyone, they're always asking you if you know a family or a friend or just someone that needs a job, just tell them to come over and sign up. And I'm like, why would I do that to another person? This job sucks. All right, let's break this down. They dangle $15 an hour in front of you like it's life-changing money. But after taxes, guess what? It's barely enough to cover a tank of gas and a bag of groceries. And you don't even think about eating out. Every bite of that burger is an hour of your life gone. An hour of cleaning tables, dodging screaming kids, being yelled at because someone's fries were too cold. You start to ask yourself, is my life worth so little? I've asked myself this question on many occasions while making the minimum wage. Is my life worth so little that I'm going to give up my dignity, my humanity, and my sanity in order to work here with these people that didn't even graduate from high school? And the truth is, the more desperate you are, the more likely you are to stay. Because I had to stay at Walmart for 2.5 years as I looked for a better job. And it wasn't until the store closed down that I finally had time to look for a full-time job without having to go to work. And that's when I finally got the call center job, which was just another minimum wage job. Because many of you don't want to hear this, especially you recent grads from university. is there's not going to be a lot of opportunity. This year is going to be the year of layoffs as more and more corporations realize that people don't have money, right? Either you don't have a job or you're making minimum wage. Both of those conditions make you an undesirable customer for anything other than ramen, gas, and paying rent. There are there isn't a whole lot of extra money out there for luxury goods, entertainment, or going out to eat. You're basically stuck at home like I am right now, sitting in a dark room. I just had frozen fish sticks. Didn't realize how long frozen fish sticks would take. You have to warm up the oven for 20 minutes, then they cook for 20 minutes, and then you pull them off of the pan and they taste like absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. But that's poor people food. That box of fish sticks is going to have to last me till next Friday when I get paid. So yeah, that's the life of really really poor people. It's nothing fun. Going to your minimum wage job is not an ideal situation for anyone. And these jobs are not limited to high school kids and people without education. Many minimum wage jobs have to be taken by people, by single moms, by people with real bills, but they don't pay enough to be able to sustain a lifestyle. A minimum wage job is the first step to becoming homeless in America because there are no laws that say that you must pay a person enough money for them to live. In fact, I would say that they go in the opposite. You're paying people enough money so that they can't afford to live. And that's the audacity of living in America, in which it calls itself a first world country while at the same time ensuring that the lowest level workers cannot possibly find a way forward in which it doesn't involve desperation work. Because desperation work is the work out there that's available. And once they sense that you don't have that desperation, they will find a way of getting rid of you. I've seen it my entire life. I've seen people walk onto a job, tell the manager, hey, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. And they just look at you like, why would you do that? You're fired. It's very common in low level jobs. All right, so here we go. Oh, the joys of being a cashier. You're the face of the store, smiling while bagging groceries and pretending it's okay that someone just screamed at you because the coupons didn't work, or maybe you're a busser, running plates back and forth, clearing dirty tables and praying no one notices the sweat dripping into your shoes. And don't even get me started on being a camp counselor. If you think kids are sweet like angels, you're clearly never spent a summer supervising a group of TikTok obsessed gremlins. Spoiler alert, they're not. Oh my gosh. These kids these days, they're very, very different. I grew up in the 90s and I don't remember the world being this obnoxious, this dark, this dystopian. Just driving your car down the street and looking at all the hollowed out buildings, just places that used to look normal. Right now, you drive down, let's say you're going down Apache Boulevard, and there's a place right past the university between Rural and McClintock. Both sides of that street. Once you pass the luxury ASU dorms on the train, along the train track, it's just left and right of just decaying buildings, torn down buildings. It just doesn't look right. It looks like a world that doesn't want poor people in it. Anything somewhat catering to the poor is going to be knocked down, or it's going to be an area that's definitely designated for women of the night, the street lizards, as they're called here in Phoenix. But there's no in between almost. It's either extreme luxury or extreme poverty, or they've just knocked it down. And that means that the world only caters to two kinds of people, the people that have money and the people that don't. And they don't really want the people that don't have money around. Here's where the nightmare really starts. Customers. Most are fine, but some. Absolute monsters. Like the time two ladies made a scene because their food was undercooked. I told them the chef said it was fine, but every time I walked by, they whispered just loud enough for me to hear. This place is terrible. And then there was the crackhead who fell asleep in the doorway, blocking everyone. We had to call the cops to get him out. Oh, and let's not forget the guy who, let's just say, we had to throw out the chair after he left. Yeah, that happened. Yesterday, when I was checking out at the Kroger's, one of the cashiers that doesn't have any redeeming qualities, right? I was checking out, and she looked at me, and this guy comes back in. He's eating some deli food out of the box while he's walking around in the store. He walks back into the store, looks at the cashier, and says to her, "Hey, man, this chicken isn't good." He's eaten half of it. And then he walks back to the counter and he tells him, "It's like, this chicken's no good. I want a refund." And I just look at the cashier. It's like, this is what you have to deal with all day. This is the same Kroger's where they had to install a lock, a multi, what do they call that? I forget. Sometimes I don't even think about what these things. It's like one of those locks on the door where you have to swipe the numbers. It's a combination lock, right? That you have to push in the numbers in order to get into. The reason that they had to start doing this at Kroger's is because they had too many people coming off the street, going into the stalls, doing various substances, and well, they started to smell in there, and it wasn't because of the number two. They started to smell because they went away while sitting on the toilet. It's just that happens. It's where else do you go? There's no privacy in this world when you can't afford to live in your own home. So you wander from corner to corner looking for privacy, and of course, you need that escapism from your substances. All right. Coworkers are your lifeline if you're lucky. When you find someone who gets it, you can survive anything, but when you're stuck with a slacker, you're doing double the work while they're on their phone in the stockroom. And managers, they're either your best friend or your worst enemy. Some will have your back while others are too busy messing with your schedule or skimming from your tips to care. I had this at Walmart. I had a manager that I couldn't stand, and I had a manager who had it out for me. This person was, I think, a college dropout. She may have been like 19 years old. And she thought that she was the top beep beep at the store because the general manager really liked her. I couldn't stand her attitude towards everyone in the store because she felt like she could do no wrong. But every once in a while, my normal supervisor would have to take a day off. And I would do everything I could to not have to work with this person. Because the second I walked in, it was Millennial Steam, you're cleaning the toilets. Millennial Steam, you're doing this other disgusting task. Millennial Steam, you're cleaning outside. She made it a point to try to force me to quit just because she knew that I didn't belong there. My education was too high. She didn't like the fact that I was a highly educated person and that I would question a lot of the things that they did there. Because that's one thing that low level jobs don't like of the proletariat. Why do we do this? It's so backwards. And they just kind of look at you like, we don't know, we just do it. That's their answer. You ask any person in that place, and they will give you some ridiculous answer. Like I asked the same person, it's like, well, where's the general manager? And she just looked at me like, you don't need to know that. And I'm like, okay, well, that shut me up. But there was this tense fighting back and forth. And once they finally closed that store and she went to a different store, I've seen her over the years just working in a corner, looking like Gollum, hunched over. She no longer has any power. She's just a low level stock person now. And it's very humbling to lose all of that prestige that you thought you had in a larger store with the general manager as your friend, as opposed to where you're a nobody in a different place and no one likes you there. You kind of just walk by and you look, and it's like, Man, 10 years in this Walmart, huh? Never gonna get ahead. You just and we actually had customers who would walk up to this person because she really thought that she was, the best thing since sliced bread. And you had customers who would walk up to her and tell her she was ugly and then tell her she couldn't do any better than Walmart. And I was just like, damn, being told that to your face by some punk kid. Ouch. And it happened repeatedly throughout the entire time that I was there because no one has any respect for people working in the minimum wage. This isn't just about me. It's about every single person working these jobs, giving everything they've got for crumbs. It's about a system that's designed to keep you just comfortable enough so you don't have to leave, but never enough to actually thrive. It's about recognizing the fight for better wages and working conditions. It's just someone else's problem. It's all of ours. So, if you've ever worked minimum wage jobs, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, count yourself lucky. But don't look away because ignoring it doesn't make it go away. If you made it this far, drop a comment, tell me your minimum wage nightmare, and let's share these stories. I don't know why it puts that stuff in there. All I'm going to tell you is to hit the like button, subscribe, drop a dono if you want, or drop a deuce. Either one, put a little poop in there if you made it this far. But that's been the story of most people's lives. Those great jobs that they tell you about, I forgot to add that I would say a percentage of the customers like to stop in every single day to call you a retard or to make fun of you for working there and telling you how you're too old to be working in a grocery store or how you need to buy a car so you're not walking to work or you need to stop riding the bus. I got that one a lot. Something about putting down people makes people who don't work in retail feel better than you. And as I think back to those days, and I remember people doing this to me every day, I don't understand how, unless you've worked in at minimum wage, that people are cruel to you because you're seen as the most disgusting aspect of our society. Minimum wage workers are considered the absolute garbage of our society, while essential, yet society tells you that you're completely disposable.